A milestone not worth celebrating. Experts from the U.S. National Centers for Environmental Prediction have declared that 3rd of July was the hottest day ever recorded globally.
The average temperature reached 17.01 degrees Celsius, surpassing the August 2016 record of 16.9. Advocates have called the unprecedented heat a death sentence.
Heat waves in India and a heat dome in the southern U.S. was the past month have led to dangerously high temperatures. Parts of China have also endured record-breaking heat, with the mercury rising to more than 35 degrees Celsius. Over in Europe, UK residents swelter through the hottest June since records began, while Spain, too, saw its warmest spring ever this year.
Experts say it is not only the rising temperatures that's concerning, but the magnitude with which it's increasing is also cause for alarm. And the World Meteorological Organization now warning that 2024 will match the current hottest year on record due to a combination of human-induced climate change and the El Nino weather pattern.
China is among countries around the world that's facing record heat. It reported 4 heat waves in the last month alone, and there is no end in sight.
Local authorities are warning of more extreme weather as well as multiple natural disasters in the coming months. That includes continued high temperatures, floods, severe convection weather and typhoons.
An alert is already in place for rain-triggered disasters in large parts of central and southwestern China. Heavy rain has affected nearly 500,000 people in Sichuan, of which 85,000 people were forced to evacuate.
About 10,000 others in Henan also had to flee after severe floods hit the province and damaged more than 2,000 homes. Similar scenes also seen in nearby provinces such as Shanxi and Chongqing.
Right, for more, we are joined by Dr. Kevin Trenberth. He's an honorary academic in the Faculty of Science at the University of Auckland. Dr. Trenberth, we've been hearing a lot about El Nino in recent weeks. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more in weeks and months to come. But tell us about some of the repercussions of a warming El Nino that you're most concerned about.
So you mentioned before that the global surface temperature is very likely the highest on record. And a key part of that is the global sea surface temperatures. Now, they're not the highest on record because most of the ocean is in the southern hemisphere where it's winter, but the sea surface temperatures are running about 0.2 of a degree Celsius above average. And that in itself is unprecedented. So a key part of that is the developing El Nino, that it's very, very warm off of the coast of Peru and Ecuador and causing all kinds of disruptions in that region. But the previous La Nina, which was over by about the end of March, has left sea temperatures in other places around the world, in the North Pacific and South Pacific and in the Atlantic, at record high levels. And so together, the oceans are showing tremendous amount of warmth, and that has a lot of memory for the climate system. Over the land, the temperatures can wax and wane much more readily as weather systems come by, but there it depends a great deal on rainfall. And so, you know, in India, I understand the monsoon was about a week late, and there's a bit less rainfall there, but you showed in some of the broadcasts that there's been flooding in other places. And so it's very uneven over the land.
Experts say it is not only the rising mercury that is concerning, but the magnitude with which it's rising. Why is that significant?
Well, you know, if this keeps up, this 2023 could well end up being the warmest year on record. And it's a sign that global climate change is strongly with us and is going to continue to influence things. As the temperatures go up, the atmosphere can hold 7% more moisture for a 1 degree Celsius increase in temperatures. And that means over the oceans where there's plenty of moisture, that is what basically happens, and then the weather systems reach out and grab that moisture and dump it down, and so it rains harder, and it also invigorates the storms. And so that's the sort of thing that we're seeing around the world, and that's the sort of thing which causes all kinds of catastrophes or local disasters.
Doctor, we understand El Nino is part of a natural climate cycle. You mentioned climate change earlier. I wonder what is the link between human caused climate change and changes to El Nino events?
At the moment, El Nino events occur about every 3 to 7 years on average. The last major one was in 2016, and that was really the warmest year on record. There was a small one in 2019-20. And so I think for the most part, the El Ninos themselves are occurring more or less as they would have. But the consequences of the El Nino are much greater than they used to be because the environment in which they're occurring has changed. It's warmer. And so El Nino is responsible. When El Ninos occur, there's more dry conditions over land in general, a tendency for more drought, hotter conditions. And this is the sort of thing that we can expect maybe through a lot of the rest of the year. And on the other hand, in the places where it is raining, it rains harder. And the locations where it's dry and where it's wet is determined by the El Nino patterns, the El Nino phenomenon itself.
And it's not just about extreme heat. You touched on it a bit earlier. How does climate change affect different regions in the world differently?
Well, the weather, the regular weather and the El Nino are still large enough that they're really not affected in a major way at the moment by the climate change aspects. What the climate change aspects do is to make all of the weather events a little more extreme than they otherwise would be. The rains are a bit heavier. They may last a little longer. They may be a little more extensive, but then the dry spells are also a little more intense, and that can easily set the stage for wildfires, as we've seen a lot in Canada this year, for instance. And so the climate change aspects are really exacerbating all of the weather and natural variability that otherwise is occurring.
Mm. The UN has came out and warned the world to prepare for this major climate phenomenon. Doctor, what can the countries that will be most affected by El Nino do to save lives and livelihoods?
Yes, so I think certainly building resilience and paying special attention to managing water, because there's going to be times when there's too much water. And on the other hand, there are going to be times when there are dry spells, when there's not enough water. And so saving the water from the time when you've got too much or the time when you don't have enough is one of the key things. And this means drainage systems and management of water through reservoirs and lakes and rivers and so on becomes very important. And it's the sort of thing that can be done in many places. Farmers, they probably have some lakes on their land. They can dig those lakes a bit deeper and save more water for when the times when they've got plenty of rainfall and things like that. And so there's certainly a lot of things that can be done, and you always want to cut down on the risk of wildfire.
And just quickly, what are some of the most promising solutions for addressing climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions that you've seen?
Yes, so concentrations of carbon dioxide are at their highest ever in the atmosphere. There's a lot of countries that have done various things around the world to try and cut emissions of carbon dioxide and also methane, but it's being overwhelmed at the moment by, I think, especially the emissions from China and India are where the increases are occurring more than anywhere else. And so the carbon dioxide is at record high levels. There's no sign that the rate of climate change is slowing down at this point. And so this is a real warning sign. Climate change is with us, and we're not doing enough to mitigate it, to cut down on the emissions.
All right, Dr. Trenberth, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your insight. Dr. Kevin Trenberth from the University of Auckland.